Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast. I'm Stu Hardy, joined, as always, by Derek Brissett. Derek, we've just had round 8 of MLR. You know, a pretty intense Saturday, followed up by the one game on the Sunday. But only 5 games this round. What was your general feeling of the weekend as a whole?
Oh man, it's I thought it was a good weekend. Obviously, every away team won, which is wild.
Yeah, the first time that's
Right.
happened in MLR history.
Yeah, which is a wild thing to consider. Some crazy news that we have to talk about too, regarding the Jackals, and then Old Glory looks to have canned their coach earlier today. So we got plenty of news to dive into. And also, I think as a podcast, we're obligated to talk about the fact that Will Smith slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars for at least a minute or something.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I've already seen like jokes on Twitter and TikTok and Instagram, and honestly, guys, it's inappropriate. It's just such a slap in the face.
Yeah, no, it's everywhere, man. Like it's inescapable right now. Like that's what I was saying. And it's like James Dealey had the great podcast title following the game of Quattwin, which I'm totally gonna roll with, unless if like there's probably some sort of like SEO algorithm reasons to call it like Will Smith slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars and how that affects the Toronto Arrows as a podcast title. But I don't know. We should probably do it. What a crazy moment. What a crazy moment.
We're letting people in behind the curtain now. We can't reveal too many of our secrets. But yeah, we will begin by talking about the last game of the weekend, the only Sunday fixture down in Hoboken. It was Rugby New York versus the Toronto Arrows. Also, Toronto's last road game for the future, because this coming weekend, Toronto, for the first time in over 1,000 days, is returning home to Toronto and York Lions Stadium. And so in order for them to make sure they have a good reception, or the best reception possible, they needed to get a win. You know, the gap between the top 3 going into the weekend, I believe, was only 2 points. And the gap between 3rd and 4th place in the Eastern Conference, and with Toronto sitting in about 6 or 7 points behind. So anyway, the Arrows needed to get the win, and they needed to get their momentum continuing from that victory over Utah. It was a very windy and frosty day in Hoboken, as we saw, a defensive masterclass from both sides, putting in all the effort to stop any forward momentum, with only the 1 try scored in the first half, and that was to New York. And there was also a yellow card just before halftime, but thankfully the Arrows were able to see out the half without conceding any further. And in fact, as the yellow card continued into the second half, they actually scored the try. John Sheridan being the quickest to a missed pass ball, able to pick it up, able to go under for the 7 points, get the lead. Then it was basically more of the same, a lot of defensive efforts from both sides to ensure that neither side was able to gain any further advantage. And then, unfortunately, another yellow card came out, this time for Paul Cellini, with a bit of indiscipline. And with the man advantage, New York were able to score in the corner. Again, the conversion was missed. So it really took right down to the final 5 minutes. The Toronto Arrows were continually pushing in the New York half. And then finally, Andrew Quattwin gets his hand on the ball, able to break through 1 tackler, and then able to brush off 3 tacklers as he stampeded towards the line. Another 7-pointer under the posts. And then Toronto were able to see off any final New York attack to kick the ball out of play and get the final victory, with the score being Toronto 14, New York 10. So I aged 5 years watching this game. Did you age 5, or did you just go over the full decade and go 10?
I don't know if I aged too much. It was a tight game. Definitely, the fingernails are certainly a lot shorter. Maybe the hair I don't think is necessarily completely turning gray. It was a good game, but it was never one where the Arrows really, like, I mean, they obviously never felt out of it or whatever. It was just a very tight defensive game, and it came down to very late in the game with I think on the final play of the game, though, I don't think I've ever gone so fast from Chris Bell's probably ill-advised kick to thinking like, oh no, why did you do that? To oh yeah, that was a great idea, excellent idea. That worked out very well. No, that was good kick. But yeah, like so Bell kind of attempts to kick it forward, and it just deflects off a couple Rooney guys, and fortunately allows Foley to pick it up, and then Quattwin, who had a phenomenal game. He led the team in carry meters as a hooker, which is impressive. And he, his biggest carry of the game, obviously, is, as you mentioned, shrugging off all the new Rugby New York. I keep wanting to say Rooney. Still, it's tough to shake that one.
Well, the U can be smaller because it's part of rugby, so it's okay.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. That's okay. Fair enough. So yeah, the New York team, they shrug off all those defenders, and amazing try under the post, which is probably like a brilliant move to just guarantee that the kick, you don't have to worry about the kick, and that keeps that's an automatic 4-point lead, which meant that New York needed a try to end the game, and they couldn't get it done. But I think, watching this game, I think we got to start with just shouting out the front row here. Which was incredible. All three of them, Cole Keith, Andrew Quattwin, and Isaac Salmon, played the full 80 minutes.
That confused me as well. I thought that they would, at least one of them would have been subbed off at certain points. And then next thing I know, I'm looking at the clock and it's 80 minutes. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Hey man, when you're playing that good, stay on. I'm not, and don't mess with what's working, right? So, I mean, you have I think you kind of look at it, right? And you obviously, as we mentioned, Quattwin already, Quattwin ends up being the hero of the game, obviously scoring the late try. The Arrow stats report following the game has him at 103 carry meters and 16 carries, which led the team in both categories. So his work rate with ball in hand was phenomenal. Cole Keith led the team in tackles, right at 21 which is super impressive. He had an immense work rate through the game too. Isaac Salmon led the team in offloads, which I love that stat as a prop. That is amazing. Salmon, obviously, with Quattwin, had a ton of carries, was bashing his way through New York defenders, drawing in defenders, and obviously on a couple occasions got a couple nice offloads off to keep the attack going, keep that play moving. But also pretty good battle in the scrum too. Chance Wingluski, I thought on the other side, I thought he played very well as well. And obviously, part of that was, started to draw some penalties in the scrum. And there was definitely a part of the game where New York seemed to be gaining more penalties from the scrum than the Arrows, had a little bit of an edge there. And especially with Wingluski versus Salmon at points. But to have that front row kind of come up, and then with playing a full 80-minute shift in the last 2 minutes of the game, the front row is the one that comes up with the try. And then when it's needed the most, they get a massive scrum win against a feed, steal the ball back, and allow Chris Bell to end the game. Right. Yeah. So that's, in their 80th minute. So, I mean, ultimately, what a shift from all three guys in the front row. Just a phenomenal performance. And the one, as you kind of mentioned, it's I don't remember last time I've seen all three front row players stick on for 80 minutes in any game, any level. And, to have them be the guys that it's at the end of the game, they're the ones that end up being the difference makers, both in the sense that they scored a try and, came up with a massive set piece scrum win on the defensive side to actually, to hold on to the ball and pick up a huge win.
Yeah. You actually mentioned Chris Bell in that analysis, and that's something that needs to be picked up because Ross Brody seemed to go down with a leg injury in the 16th minute. So Chris Bell came on for far earlier than he was expected to. You probably thought it was the 60th minute, not 16th minute. And that's a bit of concern because obviously now Brody and Bell are the two scrum halves for the Arrows, considering Ferguson's injury. Well, the injuries to the team as a whole. These are the only two. However, it should be noted that when it came to Johnny Sheridan's try, Brody you can actually see Brody on the screen. He's in one of the big coats, cheering on the guys from just beyond the touchline. So he seems to be like moving around and stuff. So hopefully it's not a serious injury and he can be back in the Arrows blue and white far sooner than hoped.
I think that's one of the things that's impressive about not only the Arrows, I guess, the first half of the Arrows season here, as we're through 7 games, so almost the first half, I guess. But also in this game in particular, where it's like the injury list came out a couple hours before game time, as the Arrows always do. And it's like, yeah, there's like 12 guys on it.
Yeah.
And they're like key important players too that are missing or have been out for the full, that are out for like long-term injuries, have been out for the whole year.
Yeah, that's something else to mention. Mason Flesh, it's been announced will be out for the entirety of the season. He has to undergo surgery as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's like you look at this game and it's like Malcolm has to leave for like, an HIA. Brody forced out of the game due to injury early on. Shepard had to leave for a blood substitution at one point. Injuries kind of keep piling up. They had 2 yellow cards. They're probably they're nowhere near the healthiest that the team can be. They're suffering injuries during the game. Yellow cards are also putting them down. And it's like, and they still found a way to beat one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. Right. And, just that ability to just kind of dig deep and just to dig deep and kind of lean on like Chris Bell, has to come in and what was it, the 16th minute, and he plays very well. Right. And, he plays very well and, has a role to play in the final try, in the game winning try too. Right. A guy like as well, a guy like Johnny Sheridan, first game of the year. Right. And it's like, the Arrow
on the pace, able to spot that missed pass, able to capitalize on it as soon as possible. And, far faster than any of the New York players.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that is a bad pass from Andy Ellis to Ed Fidow. Either bad pass or bad catch, I guess, depending on your point of view. But hits the deck. He's the first guy there, but it kind of goes to show you too, right? Like all the injuries that the Arrows have had, and there's definitely been injuries to the wingers, fullbacks, like the back 3. Outside backs there, and this is still Sheridan's first game, and he's able to come in and make a big impact. Had obviously like a massive play to be Johnny on the spot there to kind of pick up the ball and finish off that try, right? And in such a defensive battle, right, it's kind of fitting. Like we've seen it a couple times, like with the Arrows defense, is that they do have the defensive structure of the team. Like they have great line speed going right now. Like across the board, they're very fast to get off the line, and it is creating pressure. And in a lot of cases, that pressure is going to force bad passes, or it's going to force the players that are on the receiving end of those passes to maybe start hearing some footsteps, take the eyes off the ball a little bit, and that's going to end up resulting in knock-ons or loose balls. And in this case here, that's basically what happened. And then Sheridan's able to run in and scoop it up before any New York players are in the vicinity and scored a nice try under the post. I do kind of want to look at it. I feel like Johnny Sheridan's just kind of one of those guys that, he's probably like a perennial depth player on the Toronto Arrows in this league. But every time he gets into the game, he seems to score somehow.
Actually,
or have just exactly. It's a great thing to have. Like he's
like a secret weapon. In that case.
Exactly. He just shows.
He's like, we have to score tries in this game. Let's get Sheridan in.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so he just seems to kind of show up and score, or show up and just have like an insane amount of meters carried too. Every time he comes in, he kind of plays well, but I mean, is obviously, kind of entering the lineup here, because there's a lot of injuries to the backs. The Arrows backs are obviously been hit really hard. Unfortunately, it seems like it's trickling to the forwards now a little bit too, but a couple guys came back from injury, and then tough news to hear about Mason Flesh going to be out for the year. For the year, yes.
Well, for the rest of the season.
For the season. Oh, yeah, that's what I meant by year. Yeah. So he's out for the season, and then Yeah, so that's another tough loss. But even with that though, like it's nice to see, like, okay, so you got Della Vega, and we'll continue with this kind of trend here, right? Lovely, just wonderful to see guys stepping up, and despite the injuries, what the Arrows are able to do right now. Like, I mean, you look at Kyle Bailey, Thomas Della Vega, both out,
Yeah.
right? Two of Della Vega is probably one of the best flankers in the league. I mean, we've talked at length at how stacked and loaded the Arrows back row is, right? Della Vega is a big part of that. Also, Kyle Bailey, who's can play lock, can play back row, depending on where you need him at any given time. But with both of those guys out, it allows James O'Neill to get a start at 7.
Yeah.
And Rumble's at 6, Foley's at 8. Foley's been playing really well last 2 games too.
Yeah,
James
absolutely.
O'Neill comes out the gate and has a couple breakdown steals pretty early on. Solid work rate throughout the entire match, slowing the ball down, making his tackles, getting a couple carries mixed in there, right? And it's like he's playing really well as a rookie in this league, having to fill, the shoes left, as I said, by like, Thomas Della Vega, Kyle Bailey. And he's also playing on like the side that Rumble usually plays on, right? Too, like he's playing the open side flanker role, and then Rumble's shifting over to blind side, right? So it's it's impressive to see like just everybody able to come into the game, step up, whether it was O'Neill, Sheridan, Bell, like guys that aren't necessarily the starters if you have an 100% healthy lineup, but are able to come in and make a big difference in a super important win in the Eastern Conference for the Toronto Arrows as they prepare to, come back home for the first time in 1,000 something, way too damn long days.
Yeah, exactly. I'd also like to take note of the Canadians on the opposite side of the pitch, because we had Quinn Nawadi and Andrew Coe playing for Rugby New York. Quinn Nawadi, great player. And then he got subbed in the second half of Jason Emery. Andrew Coe played for the entire 80 minutes and had a pretty good defensive game, I've got to admit, especially from a guy who's come from Canada Sevens, who's known for scoring tries in pretty much every game he's been in with Rugby New York. Because I did make a prediction last week that Andrew Coe would score the first try and then Brock Webster would score a hat trick of tries. And neither of the things happened. And that's because I said Andrew Coe would score the first try. He didn't score that first try. Brock Webster, he happened, and then he would have scored a hat trick. But because it didn't, he unfortunately was unable to do so in that position.
Our predictions did not pan out very well.
Well, we said Toronto would win, so that's the most important.
We did say Toronto would win. Yeah, that was a good one. But that whole Webster, which I guess is another issue because that's Webster's last game too, right? If we're going to keep kind of talking about like the injuries and stuff, not really an injury, but I believe that's Webster's last game too, right?
It's either this game or next game, because I believe he was on I can't confirm if it was a 6-week or 6-game contract. If it was 6 weeks, that would be his final appearance, and if it was 6 games, then he may be appearing in Toronto. But I don't want to put any hope in fans' hearts just yet. And of course, we won't know until they officially announce the lineups, by which point this podcast will already be out. So
Neil Davidson's article on Brock Webster signing states clearly that Webster's deal with the Arrows runs through March 29th.
Okay, so today is the last day, because we are recording on Tuesday the 29th. So this was indeed Brock Webster's final game for the Arrows for the moment. Hopefully, if the Arrows continue their upward trajectory, we hope that Brock Webster may be able to come back for the playoffs. Of course, what we're alluding to is that Brock is leaving to join the Canada men's sevens, because they've got a pretty busy April coming up. They've got the Singapore Sevens, then they have the Vancouver Sevens, and then they have the Rugby Americas North Sevens in Nassau in the Bahamas, and that will be for qualification for the Rugby World Cup Sevens that will take place in September this year. So that is going to be a pretty intense month-long stretch.
Brock, anyways, yeah.
So, Brock, thanks for everything you've done in the Arrows jersey so far. and all the best with the Canada men's sevens.
He does leave as the team's leading try scorer still, though. So
for the moment, so here's hoping that we can have other Arrows players score. Maybe another player can get that hat trick. Maybe when Gaston Mires is fighting fit again, we'll have a three-peat on for him. So this is the thing. When you're scoring 7 pointers, that means that the kicker on your team isn't doing one of the main things that they're supposed to be doing, which is kicking the conversion. So Sam Malcolm, you would think otherwise may have been twiddling his thumbs all game. But this is the thing. We're talking about Sam the Lionheart, Sammy the Boot, who scored a fantastic 50-22 to give the Arrows a line out in New York's right by New York's try line. He also had an incredible defensive game, proving that no matter how big you are or how strong you think you are, Sam Malcolm will be there to bring you to ground as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. That's 2 weeks in a row, Sam Malcolm's defense is just absolutely shining. And like you kind of said, like it's, it doesn't need to kick. It's like, it's not often you're like highlighting fly halves performances when they're, don't necessarily like directly contribute to the scoreboard. But yeah, phenomenal game from Malcolm. He's probably like, you could probably make a good argument that at the moment he's probably one of, if not the best players in MLR right now.
We've known that for years.
For years. Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. Like, just what he can, especially what he can do on the defensive side of the ball, right? Like he's so many times it's like you saw like New York kind of tries to run in his direction and he would just shut it down, whether that's, the opposition fly half, whether that's a prop, whether that's Kara Pryor in open field after he got through a huge gap, right? And Malcolm's the guy that hits him. Malcolm hits him and is able to contribute to creating a turnover on that play. Shout out James O'Neill once again. But yeah, just that, like, just watching Malcolm is honestly like, it's amazing. Just like, no matter if it's either like the ridiculous kicking accuracy, which I mean, like you said, wasn't necessarily called upon because, the 2 tries under the post, but it's, and pretty disciplined New York team, all things considered. Never really had, I can't even think of a situation where I was like, oh, I would take points here. Looking back on the game, can you, like, was there, I don't necessarily even think there was like an opportunity for it.
It didn't seem as though there was like a clear opportunity where you could like,
where you're like, oh, I think they should
edge ahead.
Yeah,
it always seemed as though, all right, let's go for the corner. And especially as soon as the snow started falling, you're like, right, ball in hand is kind of really what this needs to be. And obviously there was like issues in the line outs, but then again, I think there was issues for like both teams, so it's balances itself out. But yeah, and like I said, the 50-22 that helped get the Arrows into Rugby New York's half and within a fighting position of scoring a try, which unfortunately didn't pan out that way. Yeah. But, it's these things of, being a tactician as well. It's not just from the kicking tee, it's from things as well. I mean, that's why he's one of the vice captains for the Arrows this year. And speaking of captains, I think it's time to mention the main man, which is Mike Sheppard. Another phenomenal performance from him. A performance so good, in fact, that Major League Rugby had him as one of the locks for the MLR 15 of the week. What else is there to say about how good Sheppard has been for the Arrows?
Man, Sheppard's been insane. Like he was, I think like he was he was an all-star in 2019, right? I believe.
Yeah, I think it was first team.
Yeah, he's really returned to that form from 2019, and it's it's wild kind of watching him play right now. Again, it's just another guy that's just showing up with the monster work rate, making a ton of tackles, getting some nice hard carries. Like I said, it's like we've talked a little bit about how he's like, adding some more, adding more elements to his game, especially in relation to the line out. And, he keeps adding like a lot more of those elements to his game. And even just like watching, like when their Arrows right now are because Rugby New York is a team that is kind of known, especially with Dylan Fawcett, who has been, in previous MLR years. Fawcett always seems to find himself among the league's leading try scorers, just because, I mean, that's not necessarily the case this year, but just because, like, that's always been kind of New York's bread and butter, is that they'll get the 5-meter line out, and there's not much that you can do to kind of stop that maul. And obviously, New York's first try of the game from Geiger was the result of a maul. But every other time that New York attempted this, the Arrows were able to shut it down. And one of the guys is right in the mix of that all the time was Mike Shepard. Just seems to be finding ways to get through, defenses, to get through mauls right now, get his hands on the ball, hold up the ball, create turnovers for the team. I thought Paul Cialini did a pretty good job of doing that, helping him out, doing that during most of this game too. And it's been, it's been insane watching him play this year, because one of the strengths of the Arrows this year has been their defense, and part of that is their ability to shut down teams' mauls going forward, as kind of evidence against a team that is really good at it in New York, especially with guys like Brakely, like kind of controlling and manning the line out there too, right? So that's something that New York's going to go to a lot, and the Arrows came in and were able to, to shut that down. Shepard was a big part of that. I got a couple turnovers, in addition to, like, just insane work rate with the tackles and everything. And, and another guy puts in a massive, minus his little blood sub, but like massive full game shift. And it's like the Toronto Arrows forwards are, really playing some fantastic rugby right now. And as kind of mentioned earlier, all the backs that are stepping up to fill holes and play where needed are also playing amazing. The line speed, they're making life difficult for the attack going forward. And a big reason why the Arrows are starting to rattling off a bunch of wins right now. And I mean, technically are 4-2 on the road, 4-3, which with the game in Langford, which is technically a home game as far as the schedule and standings are concerned. But so right now, like, 4-2 on the road, and obviously, man, we got to get hyped up for this weekend, right? So I mean, 4-2 on the road. The team is coming back home, York Lions Stadium, this Saturday at noon against Rugby ATL. I'm feeling good about being 4-3 with 7 more home games out of the remaining 9 games. And, as we kind of learned in the past, the Arrows are very difficult to beat at home. We only have 1 year of data to really support that thesis, but that's going to be a big one. And welcoming, the defending Eastern Conference champions. I think it's kind of nice and fitting that it is Atlanta, given that Atlanta was the host for Toronto all of last year.
Yeah, the roommates situation. Yeah.
So it's a fitting opponent for the first home game back. And, it's that's going to be crazy, man. How excited are you for the return home? And we get to see all these guys that we've spent the past like 2 years talking about playing. Finally, put on an Arrows jersey and run out in front of a sea of blue and white.
I mean,
Stadium.
I have to go back to like late 2019 when the 2020 schedule was released, and I was already planning a weekend, basically camped out at, I think it would have been Lamport Stadium, because on the Saturday we could have seen like the Toronto Wolfpack with Sonny Bill Williams, and on the Sunday it was the Arrows versus San Diego Legion, so we could have seen Ma Nonu, so basically 2 All Blacks in the space of 2 days. Then of course, obviously everything with COVID happened, and so all those plans were swiftly brushed away into the wind. Then comes the 2021 season, and the initial idea is that Toronto will start their season in Atlanta and hopefully relocate back to Toronto towards the end of the season because of border issues and things like that. That never came to fruition as well. So, yeah, I feel like myself and a lot of Arrows fans have been waiting so long for this to actually come about, and it kind of feels surreal that it's going to be this weekend. It's going to actually come about, because it's just been a page in the diary for so long, and you're so used to being like, okay, when we'll be watching this Arrows game on TSN or getting it through the Rugby Network, and now it's actually, we have to wake up, get dressed, get out the house, head to York Lions Stadium, have as many people there who have been waiting for this as long as we have, and finally be able to give 3 years worth of support to the Arrows, because God knows we've been waiting ages for this, but so have they as well.
Oh man, yeah, no, I'm just yeah, like you said, I'm just excited to see them back at home. And I mean, even at that, like it doesn't even matter, like whatever the result ends up being on Saturday too, it's like, it's just going to be, no matter what happens, it's going to be awesome just to have the Toronto Arrows back at home, to see them run out onto, York Lions Stadium in like, the new venue. Like you said, it's just the insane like crowd of supporters. Good thing that York Lions Stadium doesn't have a roof, because it wouldn't be there after the first minute of the game anyways. And
that is true.
Yeah, and like it's gonna be insane. Like I'm just even like looking forward to like all like actually seeing some of like the fans that we end up like interacting with all the time on like social media that you may or may not have ever actually met or anything. I think it will be a lot of fun too. And it's been a long time since I've seen like a live rugby game. Unfortunately, I had to miss the rugby rally when that happened, and so I mean it's been a while since I've seen Toronto versus Houston in 2020 in Las Vegas would have been the last live Arrows game I've seen. So it feels like it's been way too long. And like, yeah, like I'm just, oh man, I'm too excited to just, head down and actually, like you said, it's like to actually just be able to go watch the team. If someone scores a try, you can yell and scream and not have to worry about if the neighbors are going to get angry, because all your neighbors in that moment are also going to be yelling and screaming and stuff too. So
that actually reminds me, I have to write apology letters to my neighbors, because I've been like screaming Arrows for the past 3 years.
Tell them to watch with you. I don't know. Why are we, what? Actually, that's a good point. Why are we concerned about the neighbors? We should be inviting them. More Arrows fans, the better. And yeah, man, like I'm like, everyone like get your tickets.
Yeah, get your tickets, friends, get up there. I believe the gate opens from like 11. So something if you want to get there early, that's a good time to do so. I don't believe there is going to be any like TTC closures out on the line. So should be able to get there.
Like, no get problem. There early. It's a new stadium. Go walk around, check out the stadium, check out like what the the 2022 version of the Arrows game day experience is going to have the offer pregame. And yeah, man, just should be a party on Saturday, man. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be wild. And yeah, I guess it's going to be wild, man. It'll be I'm not even sure what other games are happening this weekend. I'm just so laser focused on it's just all circle the Arrows Atlanta. When we go to the predictions, I'm going to be completely new to any of these games that are occurring. So should be a fun one.
And like we say, if you see us at the game, you want to come over, say hello, by all means, we're friendly. Well, I am at least. I don't know about Derek, but yeah. Anyway, Derek's fine. Derek's okay. You may wait until he's got a beer in his hand.
If you find Dan, don't talk to Dan. Don't talk. Yeah. If you find Dan's rough. Dan's rough around the edges. He's not he might not, he's not as nearly as friendly as me and Stu, I don't think so. But yeah, I know. Yeah. If you see us, let us know what you think of the podcast, whether it's good or bad. And like you said, it's like we're all just there to have a good time, enjoy some rugby anyway. So
yeah. Have some fun, cheer on the Arrows. We look forward to seeing you there. Right, we spent a lot of time talking about one team in one game. Do you think we should blitz through these other 4 matches that happened this weekend? Don't you agree, Derek?
Yeah, sure, if you want to.
All right, sure. Okay, so we had...
Kind of our thing, but...
Okay, we had a few games happen. Now, this is the good thing about having the one game on Sunday is that it doesn't interfere with any other games because we had two games kicking off at the exact same time. So that was DC versus NOLA being the first one. And, congratulations. Yeah, they got a point. They got a try bonus point. Fantastic. It just took you 8 rounds to get to, but,
we're getting somewhere.
Last horse past the finish line.
And we'll talk about Old Glory later in this podcast because the fact that they only have one table point leads to some other news.
Yes. The final score being DC at home 22, NOLA, the visitors, 31. So NOLA will leave with the full 5 points. Get back into their win column so long. So, yeah.
Doug Frazier's kind of playing pretty well for a guy that's on a winless team or whatever. I feel like he's having a low-key, pretty decent season. He's made some nice hits, had some nice runs. I think he's been one of Old Glory's better players through their struggles so far.
Okay, we had the next game, which was the clash of the top teams in the East. Atlanta hosting New England. And, it looked at the start as though Atlanta was going to be getting this game under their belts. But then New England decided they wanted to shake things around a bit. And definitely turned on the jet burners in the second half. Final score, Atlanta 27, New England 41. Derek, you picked New England last week. Yeah. Clearly, you knew something that I didn't.
I knew that they were going to be wearing red jerseys, which I think was the key to their success. It's a big one, obviously. Obviously a huge win for New England. It probably solidifies their unofficial crown as maybe the team to beat in the Eastern Conference right now, especially with New York.
They are top of the Eastern Conference table at the moment and put themselves, I believe, 2 points clear of ATL.
Yeah, they're the 1-6-1 team, and then you got like we were kind of talking about last week, looking at the Toronto Arrows' chances, right? A win against New York, accompanied with the fact that one of New England or Atlanta would have to lose, puts them right back in the middle of the playoff race. And, it kind of draws everybody a little bit closer, only 6 points back of second now and second and third now, 6 points back on New York anyways. For the Arrows. But Matt Heaton unfortunately went down pretty early in the game. Hopefully he's not out for too long. It'd be great to see him in the lineup for the first game back in Toronto too. Kind of continue because that would be kind of cool because it's like the only other time the Arrows ever got a proper home opener. Eric Howard was the captain. So if Heaton comes up, that'll be 2 Arrows home open. The only two it would make it that the 2 Arrows home openers had Canadian captains on the other side too. So hopefully he's all right and we're able to see him on Saturday.
Yeah, we had a bit of Canadian representation across both teams. We had Connor Keys coming on for Justin Basson for the final 8 minutes. George Barton replaced Will Leonard at center at the 45-minute mark. We had Foster DeWitt come on off the bench for the Free Jacks at the 50-minute mark. Josh Larson, the captain, obviously did the entire 80 minutes, as well as Regan O'Gorman. And then Jack Reeves back from injury for the final 5 minutes as well. So, good Canadian representation across this match even. A bit of indiscipline. You had ATL getting a yellow card at the 50th minute and then New England getting one in the 63rd minute. Of course, by this point, it was unfortunate that it seems as though Saitama's yellow card for ATL coincided with Harry Barlow getting the try, but when New England got a yellow card, it was ATL were unable to really capitalize on it at that point. So they were unable to get any points. So ATL suffering a heavy loss at home, and going to make you wonder if maybe that loss, maybe they'll be coming out fighting against the Arrows on Saturday, or if the momentum is firmly with the Arrows to get third win in a row. Fire and Ice Cup, which was mentioned in this game, it is only available at the defending team's home pitch, which means that we must wait a few more weeks until the Arrows go down to Atlanta and Silverbacks Park.
I believe that's May 28th.
We'll check our diaries later and we'll bring it up near the time, but that'll be when the cup's available. So that's it. So it's just for Pride this week, Pride and position in the.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure there's table points on the line in this one too.
Yeah, but so no silverwares available at this point.
Yeah, I feel like there's more than Pride on the line though. I feel like it's still a league competition game. there's table points and stuff on the line too. Moving on west as it seems, because we head back to the Pacific Coast where it is Seattle versus Los Angeles. And bad fortunes for Seattle, who looked like they had 2 tries in the first half, only for them to be chalked off as either the forward pass or gone to touch here and there. And so LA off to a commanding lead, and then finally Seattle were able to get points in the second half, but LA were able to run away with it. The final score, Seattle 12, LA 31. Yeah, and I mean, we were kind of, I think some people were kind of starting to get a little somewhat critical of LA to start the season, and knowing that they have dealt with a lot of injuries, but now they've rattled off a couple wins, back up to 4-3 for their first 7 games, and the West is insanely tight right now too. Obviously, the last game Houston beat Utah, so. Yeah, obviously, the last game of the Houston beat Utah. I said that there's no way Paul Lasike would lose his first game. Unfortunately, he did. So my prediction there was wrong. But he did score a try. But I think the results to kind of, the results in the Western Conference, and you're looking at the Austin Gilgronis sitting at 5-2 with 23 points in the table at first place, and then LA at 4-3 with 19 points in the table. So I mean, first to fifth is, essentially a win.
Yeah.
To go from fifth to first right now. I guess obviously depending on how the rest of the table kind of shakes out, but that's this a bonus point win would put LA from 29 points to 24, which would be ahead of where Austin is first place now. And obviously, that making that jump in 1 week's a little bit easier said than done, considering that the teams ahead of you also still have to play. But this is kind of shaping up, as we said, like this. So Seattle's already played 8 games, so one team's hitting their halfway mark. But as we kind of start gearing up for the second half of the season, it looks like the playoff race in the Western Conference is going to be insane.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is in after this coming weekend, each team will have played 8 games, so we'll have a clear idea where we are at the halfway point of the league, of who's going to be challenging for maybe even like the conference final or like the home playoff final, and who needs to be picking up the slack if they're going to be challenging to be in the top 3 of their respective conference. So as you mentioned, Paul Lasike, so Utah versus Houston. Now I said that if Utah had learned their lessons from playing against Toronto, they would be able to beat Houston. And clearly, they did not. So we had a few. I mean, Utah didn't even score a single point until the 63rd minute, so over an hour of game time, by which point Houston had already scored 3 tries, each with a conversion. And and then the final try for Houston, that gave them the bonus point victory. That was an intercept as well to, really just tie the bow off on their weekend exploits. But, it doesn't get any easier for Utah, because they're going to be hosting San Diego on Friday evening. So they've gone from playing on the Saturday to playing on the Friday. So that's a 6-day turnaround. Whilst the Sabercats will begin their second round of the Texas Cup or Lone Star Champs. I don't know which one it is at the moment. I don't know if the Texas Cup has been upgraded or if Lone Star Champs is something completely different, but they will be facing Austin this weekend. So yeah, that was the week that was. But there has been some news that's come out this week, news that we're going to briefly go over as well. So as we mentioned with Rugby ATL, George Barton has now signed for the team. From the Pacific Pride, Ethan Fryer has joined the New England Free Jacks along with Isaac Olsen from the Canada Men's Sevens. Now, Seattle has acquired Ty Enoasa from San Diego for cap considerations. And some big news that happened today was Old Glory have now officially parted ways with their head coach, Andrew Douglas. And as we mentioned earlier, that we're currently in round 8 and DC have only just got their first point of the season. It's something that is disappointing, but in the world of professional sport, is it really surprising, Derek, that this has been the decision that's come about?
No, I think, kind of given, I mean, you look at it last year or whatever. Obviously, Old Glory didn't make the playoffs. I mean, granted, it was a 2-team playoffs, but, Old Glory didn't necessarily fare well. I believe Old Glory finished 6th in the Eastern Conference last year, did they not?
They finished 5th. Toronto finished 6th.
Sorry?
Toronto was 6th.
Toronto was, okay. So yeah, obviously, either way, down the standings, and then to kind of, they obviously, I think we talked about it in the like our preseason kind of preview episode where it was like Old Glory lost a lot of talent that they had last year. And the big question was kind of like if they did an adequate job kind of replacing that talent. And it really appears that it's like there's obvious holes in Old Glory's game. And I mean, it is one of those things where it's just like, you're one of the bottom teams in the league last year and you start this season 0-7. It took you 7 games to even get a table point.
Yeah.
Right. And, so they finally got a try. And I mean, even like watching this game, like their fourth try is the 78th, 9th minute. Like it's super late in the game. It's when the game is at least, it's at the point where it's like the game is already lost at this point, which I mean, I guess is kind of the point of putting bonus points in the standings anyways, is so teams kind of, keep playing and, playing out these, the final minutes of games that are already won or lost. And, so they're able to get that last try. But yeah, it is one of those things where you just, looking at it on like the surface, it's like, yeah, that, team wasn't that great last year. They lost a bunch of key players and then, are clearly the bottom of the Eastern Conference this year with, like you said, they only have 1 point in the table. It took them the 7th game to get that. And, it's one of those things. I think sometimes in pro sports, it's just, unfortunately, for the reality is for coaches is that they're usually the first ones to go. The first ones to go when ownership or management decides that it's time for a change. So, Douglas kind of becomes the first coaching casualty of 2022, and have they announced who's replacing him as head coach yet? I don't believe that.
No, in the press release, they just they gave their best wishes to Douglas's family, but nothing has been announced at the time of recording.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess like it's going to be tough. I mean, at this point, it's probably not a stretch to say that they probably don't have a shot at the playoffs anymore.
I think the actual wording was that they were going to use an interim coach. So maybe a coach,
but they haven't said who that is yet, right?
No, they haven't. So. But they will be doing a worldwide search, probably. I guess at this point for next season, to find a new head coach.
I mean, at this point in the season, like I mean, you're probably looking at they have 7 losses already. You're probably looking at having to run the table to finish 9-7 to even have a shot at the playoffs, and even 9-7 probably might not be good enough
Yeah.
to do that. But I mean, at the other end of it is who actually thinks that would be capable of doing that right now.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, they're clearly like in a tough Eastern Conference too, where
Yeah.
all 5 of the teams ahead of them are incredibly talented. And just kind of mentioned the West playoff race. I mean, I think the playoff races going forward look like they're going to be pretty insane, right? At least like it looks like both conferences might have 4 to 5 teams battling for the 3 spots as we go into the second half of the season. And so I mean, it's it is just kind of the nature of pro sports, man. Like when the team's losing, the coach is usually the first one to go. So hopefully Douglas finds something in the near future. And but yeah, it's probably for the best for Old Glory right now. And do we go on to the other crazy news too? The
Yes.
Dallas Jackals.
Yes, we have to. Okay, so this has come from the official press release from the Dallas Jackals website that they can confirm that on the afternoon of Sunday, March 20th, an off-field incident occurred which involved a number of players. With this, the Jackals have begun work with teams on a series of short-term loans and trades to cover the injuries incurred. And so there has been an incident in which very little information been given on the exact location of where this happened, but basically a
walkway.
They
said it was like a walkway collapsed.
And there's been a number of injuries. I believe it is 7 players that have now been put on the injury list, a short-term injury list as of this moment. And as such, the GM Elaine Vazzy has been in contact with other teams to ensure that there'll be players available for the short term at least. And it has been announced that as of Sunday, March 27th, the Jackals have acquired the following players. These 3 are on the Carson Shoemaker from Utah, Augusto Bohm from Seattle, and Jack Webster from NOLA are all on short-term loans from those teams. And Charlie Hola is a trade for NOLA for salary cap consideration. So it seems that Hola will be available for the remainder of the season. But when you look at the Jackals injury list, it's not pretty viewing it. I mean, their injury list was already pretty big to begin with. Now, these are the players that have been injured in the incident: Alejandro Torres, Conrado Rua, Eric Naposki, Luke Rizzo, Carlo Denisian, Kelly Kohlberg, and Todd Gleave. And they've all been given anywhere from 1 to 2 to 2 to 3 weeks until their anticipated return. On top of that, you have Calvin Gentry, who has a HIA protocol, so it's unlikely that they'll be available. Liam Murray has shoulder and neck injuries. He's out for 2 to 3 weeks. Sam Phillips has a knee injury for 2 to 3 weeks. And Decore Davis has a kidney injury, and that is to be confirmed, but it's anticipated that will be for the short term. And on top of all that, we have mid to long-term absences. Chris Pennell, the captain, has a knee injury, and that's yet to be determined. Jeremy Leonard has an ankle injury. He's out for 6 weeks. And the following 2 players have incident-related injuries, which are Ned Hodson and Henry Trinder. Injury-related, both knee and HIA, with Henry also having wrist injury. Henry is scheduled for surgery, so he will be out for 3 months, which is effectively the end of his season. Ned Todson is out for at least 6 weeks. And then we also have Mo Abdulmonam, who it was announced had a knee injury, and he has surgery scheduled, and he will be out for 9 months, so for the entirety of 2022. So, I mean, we always knew that the new boys coming into the league, it was going to be tough for them. Did they have a curse placed on them? Is this like bad karma from a past life? I mean, this is just terrible news to have. And I mean, the most important thing is thankfully no one has been seriously injured to the point that they can never play rugby again, which is something that I'm sure that was a concern and fear of the Jackals themselves. But yeah, it looks never gets easy, does it?
Yeah, no, that's just a super unfortunate incident. Yeah, the press release from the Jackals saying 9 players fell 7 feet to the ground. I guess after this walkway collapsed. Um, I don't know if I would say it's like we're lucky like no one got her, because it's like there's seems to be some serious injuries here, especially given that Hodson and Trinder are going to be out for 6+ weeks for Hodson and 3 months with surgery for Harry Trinder too, right? So that's obviously like that it's going to be incredibly, like that's just incredibly tough to, really unfortunate situation. And I mean, like like you said, man, you just kind of wish everybody that was involved in the incident and any of the other players on the team that suffered, have suffered injuries through like just rugby related reasons so far. Um, this season, you just kind of have to wish them well and wish them all a speedy recovery. And it's definitely, good on the other MLR teams for kind of stepping up and being willing to loan out some players to the Jackals in order to help them out, because it's a pretty devastating list. I think it's, all their captains are out. Naposki, who has been, one of their the shining lights this season as their first overall draft pick from this year. He's out for 2 weeks now. Torres, Aurora, like they've all some of the guys that it looks like the guys that were involved in this incident were some of the better players on the team too. So it's it is it's just super unfortunate. And like you said, it's it's just a terrible accident. And you just hope that all the players involved have a speedy recovery and are able to get back on the pitch soon. And on top, it's some devastating news, really unfortunate for the Dallas Jackals. And hopefully they'll be able to pull through this and be able to kind of bounce back. And like it says, it'll be coming off a bye week, but following this incident and stuff too, obviously their next couple games are probably going to be some uphill battles. But it's the most important thing at this point is just the health of the players. And then it does mention in the press release, it says, due to players seeking individual legal advice for related injuries, no further comments will be made about the off-field incident. So yeah, like I'm assuming there's some sort of investigation or something going on to wherever that walkway was, how exactly it collapsed with 9 individuals on it, because that's obviously something that whatever that building is, that it's you don't want that to happen at all. So it's super unfortunate. Just wish everybody that was involved the best, and hope everyone has a speedy recovery.
Absolutely. Right. If you're looking to watch some rugby this weekend, here are the places where you can find that. The Women's Six Nations continues, and you can find that on DAZN. If you're looking for the European Premiership and URC competitions, those will be on Sportsnet. If you're looking for the Super Rugby Pacific series, you can find that on TSN. If you're looking for Japan League One, you can find that on the Rugby Network, as well as the non-Arrows MLR games. They'll be available there. And if you are looking for the Arrows game against ATL, well, if you live in the GTA, by all means, get a ticket and come along to York Lions Stadium. But if you're a bit further afield, you can watch it Saturday from midday kickoff, available on TSN. So there's a lot of games happening. We got back to a 6-game configuration. And Derek, it is time for our predictions. So first up, is the Friday fixture, Utah versus San Diego. Who you got?
I think I'm gonna go with San Diego. Just they're coming off a bye, and I think have just been playing a lot better. And yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said last week, if Utah learned from their mistakes against Toronto, they'd win. They didn't learn from their mistakes. So, burnt once, I will be going with San Diego as well. Okay, next up, we have the first of the Saturday fixtures. It is Toronto versus Atlanta. Derek, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that you're going to pick Toronto.
I am. Yeah, there's after 1,000+ days, there is no way Toronto's losing this game.
Absolutely not. I'm picking.
Yeah,
I'm back in Toronto as well. Come on, boys, let's bring it on. Literally. Next up, we have New England versus NOLA Gold. Now, New England have now asserted themselves with dominance, and they are back at home at Veterans Memorial Stadium. So I'm going to be picking New England.
Yeah, I mean, you know what, man? I got to agree with you on this one. I think New England has proved last week that they are the team to beat in the Eastern Conference right now. So we'll stick with them, especially since they're playing at home, right? And that's a tough place to go up and play at. So Free Jacks.
Okay, next up, we have New York staying in Hoboken as they take on DC. Who you got, Derek?
New York, obviously.
This is going to sound really boring because it feels like we are just picking the same teams. But, yeah. I mean, DC obviously not having a great start. And with the new coaching changes, expectations are already on the floor. So I'm going to be going with New York as well. Okay, next up, we have LA versus Dallas. Dallas have a raft of new players coming in. LA coming off a win against Seattle. I think the momentum's with them, and I think having home advantage is going to make a difference. So I am going to go with LA. Derek, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, as we just kind of talked about, due to a very unfortunate incident, the Jackals roster is pretty devastated right now, and I think they'll put forth a battle, and they'll go out there and play to the best of their ability. But if you're betting on it and you're picking, I think you got to go with LA.
I am hoping that we're both wrong and Dallas pulls off a shock win.
Yeah, I was gonna say, are we picking? We're not picking. Yeah, I agree with you, but unfortunately, we're not picking the teams that we're cheering for necessarily, right? But yeah, if Dallas ends up getting their first win in the LA Coliseum with more than half their team on the injured list, that'll be one of the biggest wins in MLR history.
And now we round off the weekend with the Texas Cup clash between Austin and Houston. And this will take place at Bold Stadium. So Derek, who are you picking?
Let's go with. I'm gonna go with the Austin Gilgronis. They're coming off a bye at home. Yeah, see them get back on the winning track here.
Yeah, I mean, Houston were able to get that win over Utah as well, and they have come about leaps and bounds. And okay, my head is saying Austin. We have already agreed on the other 5 fixtures of this weekend. If we just pick the same, then it's going to be boring. So for the sake of difference, I will pick Houston. I don't expect them to win, but I just expect that we have to have at least one game in which we have alternative things. So I think Houston finally going to get a long-awaited win over Austin and be able to temporarily lift the Texas Cup.
Yeah. I mean, just to be aware for anybody that maybe places bets based on this information that we provide, you should probably pick Utah, Atlanta, NOLA, DC, and Dallas to win.
Yeah, it probably is going to work out that way, isn't it? So those are Derek's picks. Those are my picks. But if you're looking for the Toonies picks, you can find that on our new TikTok channel at the Rouge Rugby. In fact, You can find us on most social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all at the Rouge Rugby. If you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, you can listen to more on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Anchor FM. And if you like watching us, you can find more of our episodes on the Rouge Rugby YouTube channel. And if you, in fact, are watching on our YouTube channel, you can see that Derek and I have our social media handles underneath us. But if you're listening, you obviously can't. So Derek, where can the good people that support the Arrows and Canadian Rugby find you?
You can find me at Brissette the Jet across all social media platforms and at York Lions Stadium on Saturday at noon.
You can find me at York Lions Stadium this Saturday at noon as well. But if you want to find me on social media, I'm mainly on Twitter and Instagram at Hardman, spelled H4RDMAN. Now, there has been some other news that has come from Rugby Canada this week. The High Performance Review has been released, and we will be releasing a special episode later this week. And we hope that you can join us for that one next time.